I recently watched what I think is the cutest Broadway play, maybe Happy Ending, and I walked out of the theater kind of sad and happy at the same time. It just created this bittersweet feeling, and it felt like one of the happier Black Mirror episodes because it's futuristic in a way and deals with technology, and it has the same vibe as Wall-E. So it's just very, very cute and just happy and also sad at the same time with a very beautiful message. And I think that if anyone's looking for something that's romantic, uplifting, just adorable, I would highly, highly recommend this particular play. Maybe Happy Ending is a Korean play, and it first premiered in Korea in 2016, and then it came to Broadway in October 2024. And it stars Helen Shen and Darren Criss, and it was written by Hugh Park and Will Aronson. So Hugh Park wrote it in Korean, and Will Aronson wrote it in English, so there's an English and Korean version, and it's directed by Michael Arden. The whole play, I think, is pretty short, so it runs about an hour and 40 minutes, and there's no intermission, so it feels like it goes really quick. And it has won 6 Tony Awards. So it was nominated for 10 Tonys and it won 6. It won Best Book, Best Musical, Best Original Score, and Best Lead Actor for Darren Criss. Maybe Happy Ending is about 2 helper bots, which are these lifelike, human-like AI robots that help out humans. And they have been retired, so they've been thrown out by their owners, and they're living out the rest of their days in this sort of junkyard, in this apartment where all the helper bots go to die. And we first encounter Oliver. And Oliver lives in this tiny, tiny apartment, and every single day it's the same because he doesn't do anything. Every day he gets his monthly jazz magazine, he waters his plant, Waboon, and he waits for his owner, James, to come back because he thinks that his owner is going to come back to him. He doesn't believe that he's been retired. So it's just a very sad, monotonous existence. And it kind of feels philosophical and poetic at the same time because you get to see the parallel with humanity in the same way, or I guess that's what I saw, is just, you just live your life between these 4 corners and everything just kind of becomes the same day after day after day. One day he gets a knock on the door, and at the door is Claire. And Claire is asking to borrow his charger. She's also a helper bot, so she's a helper bot 5, and Oliver is a helper bot 3. And her charge is dying, and so she said that her charger has stopped working, so she wants to borrow his, and that all the other neighbors are basically dead at this point. They've all sort of run out because they're sort of becoming obsolete. Oliver is very stiff socially. He's a less advanced model, and Claire seems to be more human-like, but Oliver is just very into his routine and he doesn't want to help out Claire initially, but eventually he's like, okay, fine, you can borrow my charger as long as you come every day at 1 p.m. and you return it by 5 p.m. And they get into this little routine where she borrows it, she gives it back, she borrows it, she gives it back. And about 3 days go by and she doesn't come to borrow his charger. So he gets kind of worried, even though he doesn't want to admit it. And he comes to her door and he finds out that she has run a diagnostic on herself. And she has discovered that she's eventually going to fall apart. She's going to die because her battery is going to stop charging slowly but surely. And at some point she's going to be constantly attached to the battery in order to stay alive, and then at some point that charge is also going to fail. At the same time, Claire discovers that Oliver is waiting for his owner, James, and Oliver has been secretly sneaking out of the apartment, which he's not supposed to do, to collect cans in order to get money. And he's saving up this money to go to Jeju Island, which is where his owner James is supposed to be because he wants to come back to his owner. And Claire thinks that, well, my battery is going to run out eventually, let me experience life. And I know that on Jeju Island, there are these fireflies that I really want to see and they're very beautiful. So she says, hey, I have a car, my owner gave me a car. How about I drive you to Jeju Island? You don't have to save as much money because we have a direct form of transportation. Let's just go. And Oliver began, because he's socially awkward and stiff, because he's a lower model, he's very resistant, but then he eventually agrees. And so they decide to head out on this journey. And because they're helper bots, they're not supposed to be out in public on their own. That's not allowed. So they pretend to be human and they come up with this really cute story how they're a couple, how they met so that they can pretend to be human. They stay at a love motel, paying cash. And Claire kind of gets the sense that Oliver is in denial because she thinks that he has been thrown out, that he has been retired, and that his dream of seeing his owner again is just a faulty premise, that he's going to get hurt and he's going to find out that he's been tossed out. And Claire's experience has been very different because she knows why she was retired. And we find out that Claire had an owner, this woman who had a boyfriend So she saw that her owner and her boyfriend slowly broke up. And we find out it's because the boyfriend fell in love with Claire, which is very appropriate, I think, these days with how people are falling in love with ChatGPT. So Claire was retired for that reason, but her owner didn't hold anything against her. So she gave Claire her own password, which is important because that gives Claire the power to control her memories, to erase them if she wants to. And the owner also gave her a car. But as a result, because of this experience, Claire is sort of jaded. She understands how love grows and also how it dies and how fickle it can be. So they end up going to Jeju Island. They show up at James's door, or where he's supposed to be living, and they don't encounter James, but they encounter his son, Jaseo. I think that's how his name is pronounced. So they encounter the son. The son is freaked out because here he has these two robots who are there to see his father, and he's like, I don't know why you guys are here. My father died 6 years ago, and he came to live with me because he was passing away, he was dying. And James, the owner, did not bring Oliver with him because of the son, because the son was like, you could come live with me, but do not take your helper bot. So that is why Oliver was in fact thrown out and retired. And Jaseo also says that, hey, by the way, Oliver, James wanted to pass down this record to you, this jazz record, because that's what they bonded over. And so here we have it. James passed away. It's been about 6 years, and Oliver is just heartbroken. And that's where he realizes that he was thrown out, and he feels like he, lost that piece of love that he had with James. And Claire says, listen, I was wrong. James did love you. He left a record behind, and he had to leave you behind because he was trying to reconnect with his son. But this relationship that you had with him was real. So then they go to Jeju Island. They look up fireflies. It's very beautiful. The production is gorgeous, just so gorgeous. They go all the way back to their apartments, and when they're back, they realize that they have fallen in love. Once Claire and Oliver fall in love, it's very cute how they try to understand this feeling of love because they're both computers. And so they're sort of trying to imitate human emotion while at the same time feeling this human emotion. And even though they have a very limited time frame together, they know that eventually they're both going to shut down because they're both obsolete. But despite all of that, they still want to be together and they would enjoy their time together as much as possible. So they're delaying the inevitable. And even though they feel like they should end it, they can't help but try to experience all this happiness that they have with each other. And they do all the cute human things. So they do all the couple things by just lying on the couch all day, just doing absolutely nothing, bonding, talking about how they're not being productive, but still enjoying those moments of doing nothing together. They both water and take care of Wabun, the plant. They try to stage an argument like a regular couple would. And all of these scenes are just super adorable, and you see how they really bond and spend time together. But they slowly start to realize that they really can't keep doing this. Claire's battery is just getting worse and worse. And based on the tests that she runs, she knows that she only has about a year left before her battery completely dies out. And Oliver, because he's more durable, because he's a Helper Bot 3, he has about 3 years left. And so because they know that things are going to end, they try to end things between each other early because they don't want to deal with the pain. So they try to break up. They try to not think about each other. They try to tell themselves, I don't love the other person. I don't love them, to make it stop, even though they can't control it. And then one day, James's son, Jinseo, shows up and he asks for his father's memories. Initially, when Oliver saw Jinseo, he offered the memories to him, saying, look, I have all these memories with your father, James, because I spent years with him, and they're on my hard drive. Do you want these memories? And originally, Jinsei was very bitter because he lost his father. And we find out that his parents got divorced when he was little, and so he lived with his mom, and so he never really got those early memories with his dad. But he had time to think about it, and now he misses his father, and he thinks that he wants those memories back. He wants to get to know his dad, even though he passed away. So Oliver gives him the memories of his father, and it's through observing Jinseo and how he wants the memories of his dad, even though it's painful, even though he lost his father, that makes Oliver appreciate the value and beauty of memories. That no matter how painful memories are, they still give you something and they're still worth something. So it's kind of like the eternal sunshine of the spotless mind, where it's like no matter how painful it still is worth it. As a peace offering, Jinseo gives Oliver his password, his administrative password, which then allows Oliver to control his memories. So now Oliver can delete his memories And he has the power to erase Claire if he really wants to. And as I said before, Claire already has her password because her owner gave it to her. So now they both have their passwords and they decide, well, we don't want to deal with the pain of losing each other, so let's erase each other. And the production is absolutely stunning, and they use a lot of projections to show kind of flashbacks and all the other things. So we get to see how they erase their memories, and they both turn into fireflies, and it just looks so beautiful. And then we flash forward and we see again Oliver alone in his tiny little apartment, going about his routine, and he gets a knock on the door, and it's Claire. And she's asking to borrow a charger because her battery is still failing. And they have the exact same conversation pretty much that they had in the very beginning, because they are not supposed to remember each other. So she borrows his charger and they have their little spat. And then Oliver whispers to Waboon, don't tell her, making it clear that Oliver still remembers, that he did not erase her memories. He didn't want to. And that's where the play ends. A few things with respect to the ending. So I feel like the ending is kind of bittersweet, but also very cute at the same time. And it made me think about how perhaps this is not the first time that this has happened. Perhaps what we're seeing is a second iteration of this. Perhaps they have already erased their memories before and they're going through the second round. Of course, now we know that Oliver has not deleted his memories. And according to the writers, the ending is meant to be kind of ambiguous, where we actually don't know whether or not Claire erased her memories. She is a more advanced model, and therefore she should be a better liar than Oliver is, so we might be better deceived by Claire, and it's entirely possible that she did not erase her memories. And in the original draft, both Oliver and Claire kept their memories. In the Korean version, they leave it up to the actress, which is really cool. So the director and the writers leave it up to the actress to decide whether or not Claire kept her memories. And it could change from night to night. So some actresses decide that one night Claire is going to keep her memories, the other night she won't, which is really cool. With respect to the US play, Michael Arden prefers a more tragic ending. So he says that he believes that Claire deleted her memories. And the actress, Helen Shen, says that she doesn't want to say. So she leaves it ambiguous, and we don't know what her intentions are. What I really liked about Maybe Happy Ending is that the story felt very simple, and it felt like a story that I've heard before, that I've seen before, but at the same time felt very new. So it explored themes and ideas that I feel like I've seen in other things, but just formulated in a very simple and beautiful way. So like I said, it kind of made me think about Black Mirror episodes. It kind of made me feel like I was watching a different version of WALL-E. And it kind of reminded me of some of the themes that have been explored in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And I loved that film. So it kind of has a philosophy to it, and it touches upon different themes. One theme is loneliness and companionship, this idea of being thrown out and what it's like to be alone, and not just about physical solitude, but also emotional solitude and what it's like to just feel completely isolated. The other theme is robotic replacement, and we see this displayed in both Claire's story and Oliver's story. In Claire's story, we find out that her owner had a boyfriend, and that the boyfriend fell in love with the robot, and that's because he was almost using his feelings for the robot as a replacement. He didn't feel like he connected to his girlfriend's society. He felt like he was in a lower class, that he was inadequate, that he didn't measure up. And so his feelings for the robot developed because he needed to feel connected, and he wasn't getting that validation and that connection from his relationship. So he went to look for it elsewhere in an AI. And we see that with James and Oliver. James sort of lost his son in a divorce, and so he was using Oliver as an emotional crutch, as a sort of a way to fill that emptiness and that hole. So we see in both cases that humans were sort of relying on the helper bots, not just for help around the house, but also to meet their emotional needs. The story is also about becoming obsolete and about purpose. So in both cases, we see that the helper bots are becoming obsolete, and it kind of touches upon this idea of aging, so falling out of society where you feel like you've been discarded, and here you are in isolation and what that's like. So here we see that, they're in this apartment, and it's very dark when you think about it, that yes, they're not real, they're computers, they're robots, but they are sent there to just die alone. They can't leave, and they watch as all their neighbors also start to shut down. And so we see that eventually when they fall in love with each other, that kind of gives them a purpose, something to look forward to. And what has sustained Oliver for so long is this idea of hope, that his owner someday is going to come back. So he found purpose in taking care of this planet baboon. He's found purpose in waiting for his owner to come back, and then he found purpose in Claire. The other theme is, of course, about love and loss, and I think that was the biggest theme, and it's really about this question of, is love worth it? And Hugh Park, one of the writers, wrote this play or came up with the idea when he went through a very serious breakup. And he was thinking about how it feels to end a relationship. And he has said, I realized that love is an act to open your heart, even though you expect to feel the pain of loss one day. So really the play is about what it's like to allow yourself to love, even though you know that things are going to end potentially, that accepting that loss, accepting that pain, and the value of love. And this theme is also reiterated in the song When You're in Love, when they're talking about how when you're in love, you actually become lonelier in a way because you become part of a team of two. And so you kind of lose a part of yourself naturally. So you gain something, but also lose something at the same time, because now you used to be whole, but you almost kind of become a half at that point. And so you are taking on a major risk. And another theme is memory and identity. So it kind of explores this idea of memory, and not just the value of memory, but also how our memories, our experiences shape us. So in this case, we see that Claire and Oliver had different experiences with their humans, and that has shaped them, their philosophy, their understanding, who they are. And it really deals with, the value of memories and the decision to try to erase them, and how that influences the person's identity. So because this play had so many different themes that felt very interesting and that kind of made you think, it really resonated with me. And I thought that this story, even though it was super simple, kind of gave something when you walk out of it. And I feel like there are things that I absolutely loved and very few things that I didn't like. So one critique that I've seen a lot is that there are a lot of sightline issues. So I was sitting in a box seat, and I thought that was because I was in a box seat that I kind of missed pretty much, well, I don't say half the play, but you couldn't see everything. And as I've read reviews about this, it turns out I'm not alone. So if you do sit on the edges for this play, you kind of miss some of the action because it's very center stage for some things. And for the apartment, things are cut off because they're in a box. So it is best to sit in the middle. I still loved the play, but apparently from my angle, you don't see everything. It was still great, but I guess I would love to see the play again in the center, because apparently it's not just a box issue, but also just a play issue if you're way in the corner. And if you see my previous videos, you may know that I'm not a biggest fan of musicals, and I really loved this play. And so far, I would say it's my favorite Broadway play that I've seen so far. So I'm still trying to get acclimated to musicals. And in this particular case, I kind of wish that maybe it was a little shorter in terms of one or two songs fewer. So I feel like there were a little one too many songs. I mean, some songs I really loved and they really resonated with me and I thought they were beautiful, but I think there were just one or two where I felt like, it felt like too much. But it could just be because of the fact that I'm not really a musical person that much, but I still loved the story. And in terms of the good, I felt like there was just a lot of good. I mean, the actors, amazing. Helen and Darren, just so good. Great chemistry, acted perfectly. Beautiful, wonderful. The actor who played James, also absolutely fantastic. Production, super cool. And they were using projections, which kind of gave really cool flashbacks and just, I don't know, it just felt like really, really high production value. And it looked beautiful, so beautiful. And I felt like it didn't feel like it dragged its feet. So it did feel like there were quite a few fake outs in terms of the ending. So you think it ended, but then it keeps going, which didn't bother me. And I felt like I was very engaged the whole time. It just really honed in, really focused on it. And I loved it. It made me super happy when I walked out. So I would recommend it.